if for the last 28 years, this problem has been there, and for the last 20-something, 22 maybe, the UN force was sent to Congo to deal with this situation. On top of the list being to deal with FDLR and these other genocidal groups. And there is not a single day, not a single day that I know of, maybe you do, that these forces ever fought FDLR to try and remove them. But they've been so keen to fight the notorious or famous, I don't know, M23. That's what happened in 2012. And we warned these people, we were warning them, and saying, you are dealing with half the problem. The other half will come back to haunt all of us. This is not a military issue. This is not a problem you want to resolve by force of arms. It's largely a political problem you need to attend to. You maybe help the Congolese government to address this problem. They ignored us. Fine. 10 years after that, the problem has come to haunt all of us. But of course, the easy way, again, they have, is blame Rwanda for it.
RDF military contingent joined over 23 countries across the world in a multinational exercise codenamed Justified Accord 24, hosted by the Republic of Kenya at Nanyuki Basic Counterinsurgency, Terrorism and Stability Operations CITSO. The exercise began on February 25th and will end on March 7th, 2024. Exercise Justified Accord is an annual multinational exercise undertaken by the U.S. Army Southern European Task Force Africa, SETAF, and partner states to enhance readiness and interoperability. Over the course of the exercise, participants are engaged in various activities intended to demonstrate their preparedness and readiness to respond to regional crises and conflicts on one hand, and to undertake peacekeeping missions and humanitarian assistance on the other. Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi on Tuesday, February 27th, met his Angolan counterpart João Lourenço for talks about the Luanda peace process, which seeks to restore security in the conflict-ridden Eastern DR Congo region. Their meeting in Luanda, Angola, comes following a February 17th mini-summit held in Ethiopia at the African Union headquarters, which sought to address the root causes of the conflict in Eastern DR Congo, where a government-led coalition is fighting the M23 rebels. Under the AU-backed Luanda process, Lourenço is also the mediator between Rwanda and DR Congo, whose relations took a hit as the Congolese government accused Kigali of supporting M23 rebels. The Rwandan government dismisses the allegations, saying the conflict resulted from long-standing issues of bad governance in DR Congo and the collaboration of the Congolese armed forces and the FDLR, a UN-sanctioned terrorist group linked to the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. Rwanda has for years called on the Congolese government to end the collaboration with the FDLR. The militia group has launched attacks on Rwandan territory over the past 2 decades. At the mini-summit in the Ethiopian capital, Rwandan President Paul Kagame asked regional leaders to address the issue of FDLR's integration into the Congolese army. The FDLR is also accused of spreading violence and genocide ideology targeting Congolese Tutsi communities in eastern DR Congo. Tshisekedi's visit to Rwanda also took place as different governments and organizations are pushing to revive the Rwanda and Nairobi peace processes, which have been in a stalemate for months. A recent escalation in hostilities in eastern DR Congo raised concerns that the conflict may turn into a regional crisis if it is not contained early. Since early February, M23 rebels have advanced towards Goma, the capital of North Kivu province, raising fears that they might take control of the city of an estimated 2 million people. The Rwandan government says it is concerned by, among others, DR Congo's military buildup near the two countries' border. Rwanda hosts up to 100,000 Congolese refugees who fled conflict since the late 1990s. More than 13,000 of them fled the recent conflict between the government-led coalition and the M23 rebel group. Hundreds of thousands more refugees are hosted in Uganda, Burundi, and Kenya. Besides the FDLR, the government-led coalition in North Kivu includes troops from the Southern African Development Community, SADC, Burundi, European mercenaries, and a number of Congolese militias. The Congolese government sought support from the SADC bloc after falling out with the East African Community Regional Force, which was tasked with observing a ceasefire and the M23 rebels' withdrawal from captured territory as agreed in November 2022 in the Angolan capital Luanda. Just over a year after its deployment, the EAC Regional Force withdrew its troops from North Kivu in December 2023, when the Congolese government refused to renew its mandate, thereby frustrating regional peace efforts. Another ceasefire, brokered by the United States government in December 2023, failed to hold. The M23 rebels blamed the government coalition for ignoring the ceasefire. Eastern DR Congo has been volatile for nearly 30 years. The provinces of South Kivu, North Kivu, and Ituri are home to more than 130 armed groups that are accused of atrocities and human rights violations. Multiple regional and international interventions have failed to end decades of insecurity.
In addition, the regional peace initiatives, including the Nairobi and Rwanda process, have been totally rejected by the government of the DRC, which has decided to pursue only a military solution. Rwanda is therefore deeply concerned by the abandonment of the Rwanda and Nairobi process by the government of the DRC, and moreover by the international community's indifference to DRC's dramatic military buildup. The current trend is worrisome and risks aggravating the already dire situation in the eastern part of DRC, especially North Kivu. The government of DRC maintains the option of a military solution to a political problem that we believe is easy to resolve by addressing the root causes and the basic demands of the Kinyarwanda-speaking Congolese, including basic rights of citizenship, respect of human rights, and the right to live on their ancestral lands. The continued military buildup is an indication that the government of the DRC, working with the Rwandan genocidal force, the FDLR, are intending to expel the M23 and in general the Kinyarwanda-speaking Congolese civilian population from the DRC territory and force them to become refugees and join those other refugees of Rwandophones who have been in refugee camps in neighboring countries for almost the last 30 years. Militarization and the DRC state-orchestrated proliferation of weapons by arming the genocidal FDLR and the so-called Wazalendo militia, mercenaries, and Mai groups against their fellow Kinyarwanda-speaking citizens does not address the root causes of the problem, but it only serves to add fuel to fire and unnecessarily worsening the already very dire situation. Rwanda wants to make this clear to the Council. Protecting the rights of Kinyarwanda-speaking Congolese and other minorities is the primary responsibility of the DRC government. This is very important to note. As you are aware, the consistent failure of this obligation has exposed the whole region to almost 3 decades of conflict and instability. And Madam President, the situation in North Kivu is of concern to Rwanda and other regional states, given the buildup of military coalition comprising of FRDC, mercenaries, Rwandan genocide FDLR forces, and its splinter groups. There are also unruly militia rebranded as Wazalendo, which include armed extremist Hutu groups known by the name of Nyatura, formed by FDLR and the Burundian army, the Force Nationale Burundi. The DRC government therefore continues to provide logistical support and operational and financial support to these armed groups, especially the genocidal FDLR, to fight alongside FARDC against M23. It is clear the Rwandan genocide FDLR has been fully integrated into Congolese army as a matter of government policy, and this has been repeatedly reported on by the UN group of experts. This is a matter of serious concern to Rwanda, that a force that annihilated over 1 million Rwandan Tutsi has been integrated into the armed forces of Congolese, and this must be addressed. This alliance continues to target innocent Kinyarwanda-speaking Congolese and has caused widespread violence, hate speech, and cynically motivated murders, which have been increasingly well-funded and degenerated into another genocide in the region. We are at the brink of a very serious catastrophe in the region as a result of this armed group. Hate speech and crude tribalism have become the currents of Congolese politics under the current administration. Currently, in the Eastern DRC, ethnic discrimination and targeted killings have become the order of the day. Rwanda appeals to the Council to hold accountable the DRC government for peddling and encouraging spread of hate speech targeting part of its population. Rwanda will continue to call for accountability. This Council cannot continue to normalize hate and its consequences. The recent deployment of the SADC force, SAMI DRC, further complicates the already dire situation. SAMI DRC is not a neutral force, as evidenced by its selective application of mandate, whereby it's targeting only one armed group, the M23, and at the same time fighting alongside other armed groups embedded within the FARDC, including the Rwandan genocidal FDLR. Joint operations between MONUSCO and the FARDC with allied groups, among them the genocide FDLR, is also a matter of concern to Rwanda. Rwanda takes this alliance and intended goal very seriously. Madam President, Rwanda believes that the solution to the conflict in Eastern DRC is very simple and would only be addressed by the DRC political will to address the basic demands of the Kinyarwanda-speaking Congolese, including recognition of their basic and inherent citizenship rights, and as nationals of DRC, granting them political and civic rights, repatriation of Congolese refugees who have been in Rwanda, Kenya, and Uganda for more than 2 decades, coming to almost 30 years for some of them, and repatriation of the genocidal FDLR armed groups back to Rwanda. Rwanda's position on the problem of M23 has been very clear since the resumption of hostilities. This issue must be resolved politically amongst Congolese. We will not accept this problem to be externalized into Rwanda by force once again. It should be well noted that any solution that doesn't cater for the root causes of the conflict in Eastern DRC will not last. As you might be aware, in 2012 to 2013, the M23 was defeated militarily. However, 10 years later, the rebel group re-emerged, once again demanding protection of their people that were being persecuted, chased from their ancestral lands, their animals killed, homes destroyed, and women and girls raped. Madam President, during the just concluded presidential election in DRC, we witnessed high-level anti-Rwanda rhetoric. Although we have been used, DRC authorities using the anti-Rwanda rhetoric as their political campaign tools, President Tshisekedi this time went beyond and declared his intention to cause regime change in Rwanda. This is a matter that we take very seriously. The same threats and intentions to cause a regime change in Rwanda were echoed by the Burundian President Evariste Ndayishimiye during his trip to Kinshasa in January 2024. The recent escalation of the conflict in eastern DRC comes in the context of this public declaration by the presidents of DRC and Burundi to support regime change in Rwanda and heightened ethnic tension in the region. We need to bring to the attention of this Council that in the interest of peace, Rwanda has been cautious and avoided responding to the provocative acts by the Congolese government, including sharing on the Rwandan territory, violation of Rwandan airspace by Congolese fighter jets, cross-border shooting by FDLR soldiers, and parading of armed FDLR and Wazalendo elements at the border between Rwanda and DRC. Make no mistake, Rwanda takes seriously the statements by the presidents of DRC and Burundi to cause a regime change and the direct support to the FDLR genocidal force. As a result of these direct threats, Rwanda has adjusted its posture accordingly. We wish to stress that any force that directly or indirectly corroborates and supports the genocidal FDLR is considered belligerent to Rwanda. Madam President, I wish to reiterate that Rwanda believes that the solutions to the security challenges in DRC cannot be found in blame games or externalizing DRC's internal problems. The solutions lie in inclusive and constructive dialogue meant to address the root causes of the conflict. Madam President, to conclude, the security challenges in our region are complex, but they are also solvable. Amplifying the false allegation of the DRC government while never holding it accountable for allying itself with armed groups which have committed and continue to commit serious human rights abuses against civilians cannot lead to solutions. The DRC government support to Rwandan genocidal force is a matter of state policy and not the choice of individual actors as claimed. Ending the Congolese government support to the FDLR and ensuring their demobilization and repatriation to Rwanda is a non-negotiable requirement. If Kinshasa continues to support the genocidal FDLR and other anti-Rwanda elements, Rwanda's defensive and preventive mechanism will remain in place to guard against violation of our borders and airspace and counter any spillover into Rwanda to ensure total security for our territory. Territorial sovereignty for DRC is also territorial sovereignty for Rwanda. So both matters, it cannot be one or the other. It has to be both. Rwanda will never allow the FDLR and their backers, directly or indirectly, to cause any harm to Rwanda or our people. Before ending this statement, I wish to emphasize 4 key points. 1, protecting the rights and lives of Kenya-Rwanda-speaking Congolese is a primary responsibility of the government of DRC. The international community cannot be a bystander when hate speech and persecution is normalized. This has happened before in Rwanda in 1994. We should not allow it to happen again. Second, the DRC support for the genocidal FDLR is state policy and not the choice of individual actors. This is very serious threat to Rwanda's security and territorial integrity and must be addressed. Third, Rwanda takes very seriously the threat by the Congolese government to cause regime change in Rwanda using force. Number 4. The root causes of conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and particularly in Eastern DRC, must be addressed honestly, justly, and transparently to stop the cycle of violence and achieve sustainable peace in the region. We cannot repeat the same mistakes and expect a different outcome. Rwanda appreciates and fully supports the tireless mediation efforts of regional leaders, notably President João Lourenço of Angola. We wish to stress that Rwanda is committed to take extraordinary steps to achieve security and stability in our region by addressing the root causes of conflict. I thank you.
Bana Congo, Zachary Babasso est insurmontable, joueur à quitter la zanga remplaçant quelque part dans le monde. Quand Nenge Zalaka, Naye po Nabetali solo, Yamboka Congo, boyebi que il n'y a pas un secret. Mbok les agents en retard, il y a 34-35 jours à peu près. Pendant que le président prêtait serment, tous on a besoin de gouvernement. Naye naye bisaka que moni Congo na biso et koti bo soto moi mingi na benyango bo soto mais en réalité on dirait comme rythme mokili oyo madilo yemba na nzembo naye. Monsieur le président, gouvernement ozo sala oyo mbaloyo et tenir pena compte te na ba force politique selon batu ba pesa ka batu tosi ba incompétent trop que souffrir trop. Il faut penser à ceux qui ne sont pas dans ces histoires. Parce que les bélés, le roi Babiso, croyez ou ne croyez pas, tous les membres de l'association Moroté, il y a un bilan mystique. Pour Batmakota Akuna, ils ont battu, ils ont pouvoir, ils ont dominer Batu, ils ont la technique, ils ont ça sur ma camnini. Biso les gens ont fait ça, bisongo, il y a robotama. Et le banango Lumumba. L'université a été créée pour des gens qui ne sont pas nés intelligents. Donc, biso na nenga idéologie na nenga indusa, toza na biso batu oyo, toye ko rater ka makambute pour to kota na babiloko wana te. Et puis, batu bakota na babiloko wana pour na baboka loka ba Côte d'Ivoire, ba Ghana, ba Guinée, ba mboka na to mona ba batu ba bakota biloko wana ba mboka ezo changer. Mais biso tellement batu bakota biloko wana ba sangisa na motema mabe na kindoki na nyonso tout. Moi, je se développer ça. Donc, monsieur le président, il dit que tout royo, au kanisapé, batu oyo, basa batu na solo kate, batu basabla la mutu na sema kolikolote, batu balia kabanyete, batu babongo na basite, alors que basa bibali to babi basio babongo na bakoma bibali alors que basa basi. Congo ça na posa nango. Mandat oyo, monsieur le président, mandat moko, oyo faut kota na histoire. Oyo faut kota na histoire. Il faut tenir compte nango sur le nabeli nanzela alors que naima kamususu so nabeli nanzela ça veut dire que ça est très important nabeli nanzela nzamba pambola Congo nzamba siba motema ya tata mokonzi bobanga na binote mangungu ya est Kagame ayebi très bien ki akokota na Goma ti alors bino pe batu musu ya Goma botika pe ko bangi saka pe batu trop na ba publication na bino na internet la situation est sous contrôle. Merci à Jean-Pierre Bemba Baimoto. Bon, je vois que sans impact. À sali tout est banamenakini les gars inaperçu. Ba koti fokop, ba koti cop ya ba wamba di wamba na ba 18h45 bolile koti déjà. Et donc vous allez kunate. Ba aigri na ba aigri, ba tout sans impact na ba tout sans impact. Lotina moko kwa tina kwa ni tina. Pour na omona te mutude no uta sukuna tio ya tikoto, il y aura pas de négociation et je suis d'accord. Sobo sakani to bunda pena Rwanda ngomba moko. Match est bien.